Welcome to the Cujo Sound experience. My name is Bjørn Jacobsen, and this is Game Audio Talk, where I show a game, talk about some of its audio features. In this particular one, we are yet again going to talk about We Happy Few. Why? Because there's so much to talk about in this game. Quick disclaimer, here at Game Audio Talk, I talk about audio features, setups, aesthetics, and other things related to game audio. It's not a review of the game, and we are absolutely not here to bash it in any way. I had the pleasure of talking with the team behind the game on more than one occasion, and they also provided me with really great knowledge and footage about the development of the sound and music in this game. So why don't we share that and dig in it together? Into the world of music in We Happy Few, Part 1.
Number 2. Now serving number 2.
We Happy Few, the game itself, is developed by Compulsion Games. But the game behind the sound and music in the game is called Signal Space. They are both located in Montreal, Canada. Go Habs. The sound team at Signal Space would, during this process, consist of just about 10 people. If I am unaware of one or two of you or I missed a name, I apologize. Credit is due where credit is due. The composer at Signal Space is Nicolas Marquis. Super cool guy who shared a lot of information with me about this game, which we will dig into right now, and some of what I'm about to share with you is actually Nicolas' own words and description of some of the things, which will certainly shed some light on how things are being done under the hood of a game like this. Nicolas told me that he was very fond of the entire audio team, and first of all, he gave a big thanks to everybody who helped out work on his team. But particularly working together with the art director, Whitney Clayton, had a great influence on the musical direction of the game. This being because of the game's art style, which is quite unique and very 60s and 70s. It's very pop and very cliche, but still in a very nice and refreshing way, I think.
You smell gas?
Flaming Nora.
Forget him, there's no time.
And this leads to hundreds of films and cartoons of that era to be a source of inspiration. But the music in itself from that period is also very interesting. The 60s sonic signature is easily recognizable. Back in the 1960s, a lot of new instruments would surface and shape the sound of the era with their distinctive sound. Be it modular synths, portable keyboards, and so on. New effects would also surface, so delays, echo, reverbs, and distortion became a thing that would totally shape the genre of the time. This also means new way of composing as a whole. And for We Happy Few, it is pretty clear that a lot of work into not only sounding like this era, but also composing like it.
Snug as a bug on a drug.
The main game focuses a lot around taking a drug called joy. And it plays an essential part in the storytelling as well as the whole plot, as to why the world is the way it is, and the music, sound, and voices is used to underline this. There is overall 2 types of music in this game, and many subcategories.
Lovely day for it.
Like the one mentioned in the previous video where we showed the very fluid boundaries between hyper-localized, ubiquitous, and delocalized sounds, totally shaping up those boundaries of diegetic and non-diegetic. But those are the 2 main categories in We Happy Few. Some may argue that these are the only 2 types of musics and terms that can be used to describe music in media, but there are so many ways of using both diegetic and non-diegetic music to describe and support gameplay and the current situation of the player that we have hundreds of these subcategories as well. Diegetic music in the game, which is the hyper-localized example from the previous video, everything that comes from speakers, radios, and vinyl is all made to sound very authentic and should very much represent the time period of the game. The non-diegetic music, which is all the ambient and overlaying music, which isn't a direct part of the visuals at hand or part of the current scene, this is where more experimentation goes on with the textures, psychedelic combinations, and very vintage sounding music. This is also where the game and so many other games try to support the narrative, and in We Happy Few, it's no exception. And it's often about making sure that you are constantly aware of the fact that, no, everything is not alright. Nothing is actually alright in this game. Seriously. Actually, if this was remotely close to reality, I doubt it would be a world for many of us would want to live in. Apart from the drugs and the party, of course, but nonetheless a bad world. The interactive music constantly plays and can shift from any state to another when the game wants it to, meaning that there must be a hierarchy overruling the other states if more than one is happening at a given point in time. And here is how the game can be set up. A death sequence overrules a boss fight, which overrules the mushroom state, which overrules any of the 5 main states of ambience, which overrules the diegetic and ambient music of specific areas. Why is this? If you happen to be in a specific area, but a mushroom state is activated, the mushroom music will always overrule the music of that area. On the other hand, if you are in a perfect normal state in the middle of the game, and music is currently playing as an overlay, and you enter an area with diegetic music, this will overrule the diegetic music. Perhaps the mechanic will fade out the interactive music, but the point is that you will always have the right piece of music playing at any given point in time. Again, if you are in a mushroom trippy state and a boss fight starts, this mushroom music will go away. But if you are suddenly about to die during that boss fight, the death sequence music will start and overrule the boss fight. The death sequence and its state can be triggered at almost any time. Character has lost his health and is in danger of dying. The UI and overlaying graphics becomes black and white, and a ticking sound warns as a countdown. Literally the countdown to extinction. There is a synced heartbeat which builds up, and more dissonant sound textures take over the overall soundscape. When time has almost run out, the beat, bass, and heartbeat switches to double time. The sequence can be interrupted at any time by a stinger sound. Either because the player found medication and is now healed, or that the player does not and simply dies. The boss fight is symbolized by having a more fierce tone and more aggression to them, as they only happen on very rare occasions, that of the actual boss fight. The mushroom state is when we have consumed psychedelic mushrooms, most likely psilocybe cubensis or spis nøgenhat, as it's called in Danish. The music becomes very distinctive, and it has a great use of sitar and tabla, made highly popular in the 60s by the Beatles and Ravi Shankar, whose daughter, by the way, Anushka Shankar, same age as me, is totally brilliant, and you should absolutely go and see her perform if you ever get the chance. The mushroom state has several states within itself. One is normal and is played when the state begins after consuming the mushrooms. If the player enters combat, some of the textures are reversed and the rhythm is less structured.
That's ought to be pretty clean, unlike in the village where they spike it with jaw.
Both of these states are synced together and follows the same structure and BPM, meaning that at any point in time, we can shift between them and you will not hear them, and it will happen flawlessly, as with all these other coming states that we're about to talk about. The main 5 states is for the character in person and the state that he or she is currently in, each represented with its own sonic signature. We should call this the leitmotif of the current player state. The default state is called the normal downer state, in which most of the game will take place, where the player is normal and not affected by drugs or anything else, making sure that you see the darker side of life in this game. This could be called state 0, as we would then allow for states to be valued as positive 1 and 2 and negative 1 and 2 on each side of the 0. The positive numbers are for the increased positive effects of taking the drug joy, whereas the negative numbers represent the states of withdrawal and the so-called crash. The logic behind all this ensures that we can only change state to the adjacent state, meaning from 0 to 1 or to -1. Or the direct opposite value, so it is possible not only to change to the adjacent value, but also from -2 to +2, or from -1 to +1. but not from -1 to +2 or from 0 to +2. This means that if you're crashing and you take a drop, you will always be taken to the highest state possible. But if you're in the normal state 0 and you take the drug, you will only go one step up into +1. After that, of course, it is possible to shift just one step up and down again, but never in one go. -2, the crash state, is played when the player is experiencing a crash. Too much surprise because of the name. This occurs when the player has taken too much joy and paranoia and suspicion enters the game.
But you can never be too careful. The garden district is filled with water.
How long is it you don't look as happy as can be?
Bloody hell. I can't keep taking joy like this.
Everything turns red and all the NPCs' voices turn into a more demonic tune. There is a state within the states here again. Because if we are just crashing, layer A of the crash music will play. Yet if the player is entering a fighting state during this state, a second layer will also play, on top of the other one in perfect sync.
Right is right. Right is right.
Thus making it possible to seamlessly transform from one state to the other with the help of stingers, but without the need of masking or changing it much. -1, the withdrawal state, is when you are just coming out of the effects of the drug. The music is lowered in volume and slows down to some degree. Sounds of the ambience and voices get a tad more reverb and so on. If there is a fight occurring, then the same system as before will start up and open up the possibility of playing more loops at the same time, such as additional percussive elements and instrumental loops. 0, the boring state. This is also called the normal or the downer state, where no additional effect is played. There are also substates here, and just playing the normal music would be substate A, but if the player is under suspicion of NPCs, such as because he's been running or doing unwanted things in this crazy world of dope fiends, then we play substate B. Substate C is, of course, when a fight occurs. You may already have figured that out because that happened in the other states as well. When under suspicion, some suspenseful music will play as the NPCs become more suspicious. The music here is meant to warn the player that he or she is very, very close to being discovered or something is about to happen. Any of these substates has several variations so that the loop always stays fresh, as you can stay in this state for a very long time. The fighting version occurs when the suspicion has ended and the NPCs will finally attack. There are 4 layers here: the bass, the melodic, the percussive, and the background layer. And each has 4 different variations to choose from.
Cry havoc and let's slip the dog. Bombs away!
Any of these layers can play on top of any of the other layers, and each of these variations can play with any of the other variations. They are synced to the same length, so shifting between them and adding them on top of each other, or taking one out, is never a problem. +1, the joy state. And this is where the fun begins, as you know. The +1 state, in its normal variations, shows a euphoric soundscape. Everything is quite colorful and there's rainbows everywhere. Pretty sure those are farts, but they are appearing as rainbows. There are several variations of this soft, chill, and fluffy music, simply to show that your problems have just vanished because you just popped that pill, as you know it does. The same thing goes for suspicion and fighting variations, just like as in the other states. The tune becomes slightly dissonant, more frightening, and more focused on the psychedelic parts of the music when the NPCs are suspicious. As with fighting, a special piece is also played for when this.
Lovely day for it.
Did you see the Piper's match? Smashing.
A joy detector.
+2, the overdose state. This happens. This happens when the character has taken too much joy. and is starting to feel all the negative side effects of the drug when actually being poisoned by the drug itself because of too much intake. The character cannot then, in the game, grab anything or start a fight, but everything is still like faster and more aggressive. The same loop as the +1 joy state actually plays, but it's sped up with 50%. And those are the states of the interactive music. The diegetic music and the ambient music for all the specific and unique areas and the biomes of this game are all slightly different. The music is meant to represent the specific time period of which the game takes place, but also to underline the fact that the government in this game is pumping you full of propaganda through the music, and they are trying to sell you happiness. Kind of like in real life, right?
Lovely day for it.
Wait, I forgot to tell you the punchline.
In most areas of the game, they also have an ambient layer of music attached to it. Sometimes this starts to play and fades in if things have been quiet for a while. It has a nice, soothing sound to it. Or if you enter a specific area which has its actual specific needs, then a certain ambient, almost leitmotif style music for that area is played to spice things up. That's it for this video about the way the music setup works in We Happy Few. I hope you enjoyed it. Next up, we'll be talking about the instrumentation and influence of the music in the game as well. But quickly, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you want to know more. But also, consider signing up on patreon.com/Cujo Sound, where you for as little as $1 a month can help me sustain this channel and the time I spent on creating all this material. It would make things a lot easier on my end, and I would really, really appreciate it. Cujo Sound and Bjørn Jacobsen signing out, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.